Find your favorite programs online at jupiterbroadcasting.com. This episode brought to you by the extreme folks over at GoDaddy.com.
This week on the Linux Action Show, swooping in from the clouds and getting all in your face, we give you solid alternatives to Google's services that put you back in control. Is it possible to build your own cloud? Is open source technology up to this task? Stay tuned and find out. Plus so much more. All this week on the Linux Action Show. And welcome to the Linux Action Show, Season 16, Episode 10. I had to verify off to the side. Even though we just talked about it, yay, but 5 seconds ago. Thanks for the reminder, by the way, Chris, about what episode we're actually doing here. My name is Brian. That guy over there who knows what episode this is Chris.
Hey there, Brian. Check out my web browser. It's running Linux.
It sure as hell is.
Yeah.
Yo, get this. So it's not just running Linux. It literally is. It's just a full emulator.
Yeah, it actually is.
It's running the Linux kernel in RAM. It's a JavaScript-based emulator.
Yep.
Well, I think it's one of the guys behind Box.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, it's a 32-bit x86 compatible CPU.
That's crazy.
No FPU, MMX, or SSE.
What? You didn't emulate an FPU in JavaScript?
But
Lazy, sir.
Linux has one built in, so FPU emulation works. It's based on Linux 2.6.20.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Or is it the folks behind the QEMU?
Oh, maybe.
QEMU, I think, is what it is. But either way, that is insane,
I think it is.
dude.
Yep, it looks like it is the guys. Yeah, very, very, very cool.
That's crazy.
That's just one of the great little things where it's like you never would expect an open source project to go. And there it is.
Are you feeling like me, like you want to be able to use this for something?
Yeah.
I don't even know what to use it for, but I want to.
You know what? I think one of the things they were thinking people could use it for is like JavaScript benchmarks and stuff. Like you could come up with maybe some stuff inside there to test the performance difference between different platforms and browsers.
Yeah, just run some of the benchmarking tools.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Isn't that neat?
Yeah.
So that's one thing you could use
So you could
for.
measure how fast your browser is at JavaScript compared to your raw native hardware running the same benchmark.
And
that's cool.
That would be some compelling.
That's cool.
That'd be some compelling ways to get here's the difference between running a native editor and running Google Docs speed-wise, and here's this and that. Maybe we'll see. We'll see where it goes, B-Man.
That's so cool.
I'm waiting for somebody to get X11 running in there. Then you'll really have something. Right?
Dude, could you imagine that? Could you imagine that?
Actually, we're going to talk about something a little bit like that later on in the episode, about having your whole OS up in the cloud.
Well, yeah. But seriously, though, that's crazy. That is crazy.
That would be, right?
I mean, that's just stupid. Can you imagine how much work this was to get a JavaScript-based x86 emulator?
Look, and here I am. I'm in the Etsy directory right now, and
that's just stupid.
I'm going to cat the password file. Look at that.
Dude, it works.
Yes.
It's Linux.
Isn't that awesome?
Running in your browser.
I know. And
you guys got to check this out.
Yeah, I'll put the link in the show notes in the Runs Linux section.
You can download it, right? I mean...
I don't know. I guess you could download it and throw it on your own.
Because I want to.
All the code's open.
See, I got to get this up on my own machine.
Why not?
I don't know why. Well, plus, and customize like the image.
Actually,
so you could throw in your own apps and do some cool things.
If you could have like some you throw ping in there, you put trace path in there, you put NS
some cool
lookup,
tools available all the time.
Some nice diagnostic stuff, and you just load the web page. You don't even have to SSH to your server. You just load the web page.
And maybe have like some symlinks to some actual network. Is there any network support in this?
It's got a local interface. Like if you take a look at it, I was just digging around to see if they had done a network interface device, and I don't see anything yet. But
look at that.
The support's there in the kernel.
ifconfig in your browser.
Isn't that
via
awesome?
JavaScript.
It's just got one. It's just got the local loopback at the moment, but I could see something there.
That's 3,000 different kinds of awesome stupid. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah,
I absolutely love it.
Now, B-Man, we've got a heck of a show.
I don't want to talk about anything else.
We've got.
I mean, there's plenty of other stuff.
You've got an app pick that I think we definitely want to talk about.
Okay, that's right. That's right.
Your Linux app pick is really cool. Plus, I got myself the new Nexus S 4G.
Oh, yeah, look at that keyboardless phone.
Yeah, this nice keyboardless phone. I'll talk a little bit about that, and I got an Android pick. But before we go, two things I want to tell people about. One is our new show, TechSnap. I feel like a dope. I've been meaning to mention this.
Yes.
TechSnap is it's like if you're an IT guy, you're a systems administrator guy, you're really curious, like, back-end server infrastructure stuff, check out TechSnap.
It's actually a pretty good show. And
thank you, sir.
If you've watched me for some time, you know that I crap all over every show we do. I basically am like, hey, this No, this show's
That's
kind of
true.
baloney. I don't
Yeah.
really like it.
I don't watch that show.
I don't watch that show. Half the shows we do, I don't care.
I don't
Like,
watch
we
that.
do some show about Star Trek.
I barely even watch this
I don't
show,
even know what that.
though, so.
I watched the show once in like a year. But TechSnap's actually pretty
Yeah,
good if you
yeah.
guys are like really into the hardcore, like, you know, server security and IT administration topics.
Yep.
Literally, all it is Chris and this dude Alan. They sit around and they just like brain spew onto you topics.
Alan's been on back when Katie was out having her baby. Alan came on and did
Oh
the,
yeah,
DSD
he did a great
segments.
job.
Yep.
He's a BSD duder. So
There you go.
it's worth checking out at least once. It's definitely a cool show.
Yeah, thanks. All right, now let's go over to GoDaddy.com and give a quick holler over to Danica. Good morning, Danica, and the boys over at the GoDaddy.com.
Okay. People were whining, too much advertisement. So here's what we're gonna do. This is GoDaddy. Bring up the thing. GoDaddy. This right here. I'm pointing at Danica. This is Danica.
That's Danica.
Bring me back so I can point at Danica.
All right, there you go.
This right here.
I don't want
Whoops,
to cover
whoops,
her up.
Don't want to.
Should I go up a little
This
bit?
right here is Danica.
I'll give her some room.
Danica says, go to GoDaddy.
Yeah.
Type in Linux, save 10%. Type in Linux 20 and
Yeah.
save 20% off of hosting. I just did this.
Yeah.
I moved my blog, lunduke.com, over to
Yeah.
GoDaddy Deluxe hosting.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
You're
speed.
liking it, huh?
Great speed. You know how a lot of the hosts like GoDaddy used to have kind of like the shared hosting kind of plans,
Yeah.
and they were kind of pokey.
Well, because
I
they're
mean,
like
you're
they're-
sitting on a server with like 80 million other guys.
Well, they have the option. You can go crazy cheap, but then you trade for performance.
You trade performance. Now, what they've got now is they've got it so I'm paying was like $50 a year. Maybe it's a little bit more than that. Unlimited bandwidth.
Yes, I know, right?
150 gigs of storage.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's insane.
No, I know.
You can choose between a Linux or a Windows server, or a VM, which is great. So basically, your site lives in a VM and it scales. So it continues to scale bigger and bigger. My blog gets a fair bit of traffic. So
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna use this as a test bench.
Well, what's
I'm gonna
nice,
move it over, and
with
it's
your,
running great.
With your blog too, it's like you'll have a story hit Dig or Reddit, and then it's like a ton of traffic.
Yeah.
And on a lot of places, you get penalized for success.
This you do not.
Yeah.
No penalties at
Which makes
all.
it great. That's what I use to roll our own CDN network because it's really nice. Like
And
that.
I was able to move everything over a piece of cake. You get, you got MySQL databases.
Yep.
I mean, there's nothing you don't have. You can even execute CGIs from there, and they have no problems with that.
That's the nice thing too. Yeah.
Way nice. It's basically like having a fully, maintained server by them, except you don't have to do any of the maintenance.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Exactly.
So I'm really big fan of it so far. Have only
And
been running it for the last week.
For the
but
for the
so far, so
package you
good.
got, people have to the 31st of this month to use the code Linux ECO, but you have to go for a whole year.
So what you do, you get a whole year of the deluxe hosting package,
Yeah.
and you get the deluxe hosting package for the price of the economy hosting package.
Right.
So Linux ECO.
That's
for
a pretty good
economy.
deal. So you get
It's a
the
great
cheap
deal.
price, but you get the unlimited hosting. Which
And
is nice.
basically what it gives you is more databases and way more storage.
Boom.
That's the difference.
There you
But it's
go.
worth it.
There you have it. And thanks to GoDaddy, and of course, if you're just buying domains or regular hosting, you can use our code Linux to get 10% off.
It'd be bitching.
All right, I want to tell you really quick about an app that's kind of like the synergy of a site I love, Reddit,
Is it the synergy?
with the platform I love, Android. Well, mixed love on Android, but
Okay.
Redwall is the app, and I'll be fully frank with you guys. It's a little crashy in the face sometimes, and
Isn't Google Android a little crashy in the face
it
sometimes?
really depends. The good apps are really solid. I was almost gonna make Seismic my pick today, but I want to give it another week. But so far, Seismic has been rocking on this thing.
No, really.
This, however, it's crashy crash. But I have like different requirements. This just gets me awesome backgrounds posted to Reddit. So what it does, it's like a meta filter for all of the best stuff that gets rated on Reddit that are sized correctly for Android devices, and then this just lets you download them to your device.
That's actually kind of cool.
Yeah. And you know what? It can be a little crashy for that.
But you know what? It doesn't matter. It's not like it kills your whole system if that thing crashes. So that's okay.
That's why I get my background, and if it crashes after every few backgrounds, whatever. But some of you might not have any problems. Now, I've tried it on several different Android devices, and it's been crashy on all of them, but no big deal.
Well, at least it's consistent, man.
And I just wanted to
That's
give
the important part.
I won't do a full review here, but I just wanted to give a mention. I got the Nexus 4G. That's the Sprint version of the Nexus.
Now, do you have 4G speed without limits with that?
Not at my house.
Oh.
But if I go down the hill a bit, I do.
Yeah.
Now, I guess I'll just say it's a great phone, and yeah, it's a single core, but I mean, come on. First of all, I'm not sold on dual core just yet as far as battery performance goes, or Android is really tuned for it. But that aside, it's a good, great, solid Google experience phone, and that's why I went with it. It is
Yeah, it looks
100% stock Android. There's no modifications, which means it's super fast. It's got really great response. It's got the best immediate touch response I've ever seen on an Android device.
Yeah, that's been my problem with Android phones is you touch things to scroll, and it's herky-jerky, crazy slow.
Yeah, I really don't feel like I'm ever waiting for this phone. I really feel like this is truly the fastest Android phone I've ever used. And, of course, it's got the absolute latest version of Gingerbread, which means it's got the Google video chat, which is cool. I tried that out with my wife.
It looks nice.
It's nice. Okay, that's that. Now, here's the downside to the 4G version of the Nexus. Right now, this is not fully confirmed, but if you read all of the message boards in my own experience, B-Man, you see how much, see my Wi-Fi signal right there? So I have 1-2 bars maybe.
Yeah, like 2 bars.
Yeah.
You're not that far from your...
No, the access point's right behind the curtain there, behind us.
Yeah, it's like a few feet away.
Yeah, there's some sort of bug in the radio code on this that affects the 4G and the Wi-Fi, so your reception can be really hit and miss.
That is crummy.
I haven't had it really affect me in a way where I've had dropped calls, but I've only had this for a couple of days.
Okay.
You know, what I have had, though, is, I lose my data connection from time to time, like when I'm downloading apps from the marketplace and stuff. But once they get that, and they roll out, see, the nice thing about these stock, the reason why you go with this stock Google phone is because you get the latest Android builds pushed down to your phone all the time.
That's awesome.
So it's like
Which
having...
you need with Android.
Yeah, it's like having a rooted phone and running Cyanogen without having to run a Cyanogen mod.
Right.
So that's why I like it. It's a great phone, and once they get the radio update, I think it's going to be one of the best Android phones out there.
Dude, it's actually pretty nice. I mean, you know me. I like my keyboards and whatnot, so I'm sticking my N900, but
Yeah,
nice.
if you like the physical keyboard, there's not really an option
No.
with this guy. The great screen, by the way, the AMOLED screen, it's a little smaller than my Evo. I don't know. Here's the difference. The colors on this screen are just vibrant and fantastic. I can see if you look at the Google search bar there, you can see the pixels.
Yeah?
Yeah, I couldn't see that on my Evo. Like on my Evo, you wouldn't be able to see those dots. And you wouldn't, so the picture is better on this, richer, deeper colors, but I feel like I can kind of see the UI a little bit.
Yeah, you can.
But I don't know. It's all right.
It looks nice, though.
It's nice.
It's not bad. Come on.
So, dude, let's talk about AAA, your Linux app pick, man.
All right, so my Linux app pick this week is a game because we need to get some fun in here with
Dude,
the Linux apps.
Good call.
So we went with something that I feel is absolutely vital and super, super awesome. That is a game called AAA. It is an open source implementation of what is essentially Axis and Allies, which is an amazing board game that is a lot like Risk, plus a billion. Basically, it's a very, very complicated Risk with super awesome strategy, and it's an absolutely fantastic game that's been around for a long, long time, about 1 million years. And it's a great game. So the cool thing about this AAA, though, runs on Linux, runs on the other platforms as well, allows you to have custom maps, custom rule sets, so you can play the classical Axis and Allies type game, or you can have very modified games. You can have simpler games, more complicated games, huge games, tiny games, whatever.
LAN games, over-the-net games.
Yes, play-by-email games.
Play-by-email. How cool is that?
It's very cool. So if you're looking for a good strategy gaming, turn-based strategy experience on Linux, where you can play with your friends on Windows and Mac, also, this really is the bee's knees. This game is pure awesome.
It's so great.
It is, and now, that's the thing. It's not in 3D. It's not all super flashy. Honestly, the frame rates suck. But here's the thing. It doesn't matter. This is a game for hardcore strategy gamers, people who like strategy board games and really want to just dive in and love a good strategy game. This is the best there is.
It's really neat.
And it runs on Linux fantastically.
And there's map packs you can download. It only comes with like 4 or 5 maps when you download it, but then there's like a whole bunch you can get online.
It's awesome.
And I just love the idea of a nice, slow-paced, it's like chess by mail, only
way bigger,
cooler, and more tech.
Yeah, with like, war scenarios from all the major wars and fantasy war scenarios.
And it's got like risk calculators and stuff, so you can like bring up stuff and like do calculations on possible moves and then get stuff back before you do it.
It's a great game. Yeah. Check it out in the show notes. It's AAA, one word. It's absolutely fantastic. Highly, highly recommended if you're into strategy games at all.
Yep. There you go, AAA.sourceforge.net, or go check the show notes.
Beauty.
All right, B-Man, let's do the news.
What's new in the news this week?
All right, Brian, our top story on the news docket turns out to be a rather interesting one. It starts with MeeGo 1.2's release. Yep. Which on its own might not make it towards the top of the news docket this week.
Well, no, it's good. I mean, just to put this out there, for those of you who have been following the developments of MeeGo, things have been a little sketch, right? I mean, I mean, come on. Nokia was like Windows a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, Linux is cool.
I mean, we're gonna do a thing, and we're gonna put Migo on it.
You know, I mean,
seriously, we're gonna do that.
I mean, we've been hanging out a lot, and I think we're gonna stay friends. But you know, so Nokia's been all Windows Phone 7 happy, and everyone's like, well, what's happening with Migo? And
right.
so the official statement was Migo's gonna be more of a research-based OS. It's gonna be
at least from
research.
Nokia.
Official a new user experience.
But at the same time, Intel's gotten a lot more serious about Migo. Like there was
a lot more serious.
There was word and rumor going around online that after the Migo team got laid off at Nokia, Intel started making direct contacts and saying, "Hey, we're hiring, and come work for us."
So, so if you're looking at Migo on a phone, though, the cool thing is with 1.2 out, the 1.2 developer release will follow shortly. I know that's a little confusing. So 1.2 comes out, and then the 1.2 developer release follows.
Okay.
That's the release that will be made for, say, an N900. So you can actually run it on the device, and you can already run 1.2 on the device, but it's not really meant for that.
Gotcha. Okay.
So they get the 1.2 out, so you'll be able to run it on the N900 soon, and that's nice to see it still happening, even though it's fairly shortly after the whole Windows Phone brouhaha.
Yeah, no.
So that's nice. I like that.
What interesting plays into all of this is starting tomorrow. We're recording this on Sunday like we always do. It kicks off on May 23rd, the Migo conference in San Francisco.
Yep.
And, of course, one of the hot topics will be Migo 1.2, which, interesting enough, has, of course, a variety of support for Intel Atoms. Again, because this is becoming a heavy Intel project.
Very heavy.
Honestly.
Yeah.
But the other thing that's interesting about it is they're really upping the support for ARM version 7 platforms.
Awesome.
Yeah, which is really great. There's also a lot of other great new enhancements in Migo, but I just think it's interesting by itself when you combine with the fact that Intel's really is stepping up. I mean, going through with this conference, shipping these releases really does, in my opinion, show a commitment to the Migo platform.
Yep.
But all that said, there's also some stories coming out, like this one you found, B-Man. Maybe we don't even care. If Migo
wait, before we dive into this,
right.
I want to mention something. What is it in your mind, Chris, I'm asking you this, that makes Migo Migo? What is it that differentiates Migo from any other random Linux distro?
Linux distro?
Because that's the important thing, right? Because we've got all these Linux distros that run on all these devices, phones and tablets and in-car vehicle in-dash systems and media players and everything, set-top boxes. What makes Migo different?
I'd say the main thing is the original sort of, for Migo, the source of its origination would be coming from Intel, build for devices, build for low power, and build for mobile.
No, wait, because Migo really is, I mean, it's basically Fedora.
It's Fedora.
It's Fedora.
But it's been stripped down.
It's stripped down. It's a stripped down Fedora release, but, I mean, come on.
And Intel's got in there with a ton of power management stuff. But
all of that stuff is available for all the other distros, too.
Yeah, you're right.
What is it that makes Migo different? It's the UI.
Yeah, it's got to be the UI.
I mean, if you took the UI, that custom flat UI away from Migo and just threw GNOME 2 on there,
it would be,
no one would know that it was happening,
no one would
care.
It wouldn't matter if it got 2 days of battery life versus 6 hours, because...
Now, here's the thing.
Yeah.
Isn't it really that UI? Isn't that just trying to accomplish the same things that Canonical's trying to accomplish with Unity and GNOME 3 is trying to accomplish?
I mean, different goals, because Unity is for desktop resolution. But I agree with you. They are attempting to solve the same usability problem.
Same issue.
Yeah.
So we're seeing, in my mind, I look at this and I like Migo. I really do. I want to see Migo succeed.
Yeah.
But I'm a little concerned because, we've talked a little bit about projects, kind of duplicating effort. And we're seeing, honestly, more of that than I think I've ever seen. Ever.
Yeah, but
I mean,
we've gone down this route before, and we've always I think ended up at this point, and it is it's a symptom of seeing the sausage be made in the open source community. This could be happening behind closed doors in companies.
Here's the thing. When I see sausage be made, it just makes me want to eat sausage.
Yeah.
Well,
I see that
beginning to end, man. I want to watch it all. And at the end, I'm hungry for breakfast.
That's why we do this show.
I want a plate full of links, and I want to get rocking.
That's why the audience loves the show, and that's why we do the show. Because not only do we like seeing the sausage made, but we do like eating it. And then, but the other side to that too is that, well, I guess. Yeah, the thing is it's kind of like maybe in a way Google's approach, where they're putting Chrome OS out there and Android out there, and they're letting sort of just the organic marketplace.
See where it goes.
Yeah.
See who takes it. See what really becomes successful.
The Apple approach is a monarch on high comes down and says, you will do this, you will not do that.
And shoves it down everyone's throat.
And because of that, it gets out to market a year ahead of everybody else.
Yeah.
And the very specific features they chose are the only features they worked on, so they work. The flip side of that is the other things that go out there are sort of like this, organic mass that have to go through this whole ecosystem, this whole biology, this whole evolution process. And that's where Migo's at. Linux high five.
There we go.
Now let's talk about, though, because I think this is kind of where you're going, right?
Yeah, I want to talk about something that I think is a little more interesting.
I think I am completely in agreement with you, B-Man. So there is a link that came out of the Ubuntu's Developer Summit that we just missed last week and wanted to cover in this show because the B-Man caught it earlier, and that is Kubuntu Mobile.
Now, for Ubuntu 11.10, the Kubuntu team is focusing on Kubuntu Mobile as one of the main goals. If you have not checked this out yet, check this the hell out.
Yeah, it's really neat.
So, imagine, if you will, an Ubuntu distribution based on KDE running on your Nokia N900 smartphone that is entirely plasma-based with full telephony. Now, scroll back up and look to that N900 shot there, Chris. For those watching the video, this is awesome. The 11.10 release, one of the big goals is to have full telephony, basically meaning it can make phone calls, and send and receive SMS messages. That's awesome. And, of course, data.
Yeah.
Now, this will be a full Plasma-based OS, so the real goal of this is to be running a lot of Plasma widgets. Now, of course, you would be able to run desktop, applications recompiled for ARM and all those sorts of things. Yeah. But the goal here really is Plasma-based desktop with Plasma widgets. Now, if you are a fan of KDE and you've been running KDE 4.6, you can already start to imagine how flexible that would be with resizable workspace areas, with resizable and rotatable widgets, with all sorts of things that you could accomplish with the power of KDE and the Plasma desktop in a mobile setting. So you make widgets that are customized for this usage, and then function to do all your SMS messaging, to do your web browsing, to do it in widgets is totally possible.
Dude, how perfect is virtual desktops for a limited small interface like this? You could have like your SMS virtual desktop.
It's great. It's great. Now, if you have an N900 right now, you're running Mamo 5, which is a great Debian-based Linux distribution, and the home screen has kind of like a virtual desktop thing where, it's just like Android where you swipe side to side and you move around. But it's not technically virtual desktops for your running apps. Android has the same issue where the home screen, you can store lots of things on essentially pages and such.
Yeah.
But imagine if everything you've got is Plasma widgets across virtual desktops like that.
Wicked.
Massive flexibility, plus really looking cool. So the great thing is they're shooting for 11.10 as a launch for that.
Yeah.
That's 6 months from now.
Yeah.
That means that we're going to be able to start playing with, hopefully, alpha and beta releases over the coming months.
Dude, I tell you, if they get this
I'm going to be on this like white on rice, I tell you what.
Yeah, that's for sure. If they get this working and the interface is responsive enough running, it's going to be KDE on an N900, but if it's even semi-responsive, I'm out the door buying an N900 like that. I mean, really what I want is more power in a mobile device, and I think the whole KDE 4 Plasma system is perfect for supporting something like
awesome. It's great. I love it. And
they're going to use OpenGL ES and KWin too, so you're going to get some of the nice KWin compositors stuff, and it's just going to look, dude, this is just
fantastic.
There's already work on things like Contact Touch. I don't know if you've seen Contact Touch, but they're already trying to transform some of these things to work.
And Calligra is going to have a what they call Calligra Mobile. Yeah,
Calligra Mobile, huh? We'll check that out. So this is a really cool thing.
See if I have a screenshot of that.
And we'll have a shot we'll have links in the show notes. But
no, I don't have a screenshot of it. But the idea is an entire Calligra suite for mobile. That means basically KOffice. Basically what you're looking at is a mobile version of KOffice on your phone.
Yeah.
Now the great thing is this is of course would be a Kubuntu release with the primary target phone being the 900 because it's the easiest phone like that. It's very open. It's very Linux hacker friendly to start with.
It's so funny. It's so
a
funny
great one. But that means for other phones this becomes a very viable distribution to simply, port new drivers over for additional phones to the Kubuntu suite, which is absolutely fantastic.
Okay.
And I know that this entire stack is not going to be Kubuntu specific, but Kubuntu is where we're looking at it right now, and that's what's making the news.
So the N900 came out on
2009.
November 11, 2009.
Basically the beginning of the year in 2010. So
it's got a 600 megahertz ARM 8 processor in it. Now, you worried that might be a little pokey, but I think it's still funny that it's still our best option in terms of open platform mobile hardware.
And it's still very, very fast. And the thing is, if you make a nice, fast distribution, I mean, come on. A lot of us were running Linux on way less powerful hardware than this for our desktop machines just a couple years ago.
Yeah.
So the fact is, you can play really amazing 3D games on this. Come on. Quake 2 ran on way slower hardware than this.
No, and we know we also know that Intel's talked a lot about putting Atom-based devices out there, and maybe those will be more open.
That would be great.
But we also know that Nokia is talking about that. We know that Nokia is saying, "Hey, we're going to have something at the end of the year running Migo. Maybe they'll leave that open like this, and that'll be the next version of that."
But it would be great. So I'm really excited. I want to give my hats off to the guys working on Kubuntu Mobile and all of the related tools and technologies, 'cause this is way cool in my opinion.
Oh man,
and
this works.
This is what's cool about this is a fully customizable thing. A Plasma desktop is an incredibly customizable experience. You could even start with almost nothing and create your own user experience.
Do you end up though in a position when your phone is a total Linux device and you want to mess with it and you end up breaking it? Then your phone's broken.
So?
Well, I mean what if the wife has to get a hold of you for something wrong with the kid or something?
Well,
so I almost wish you could have like an isolated firmware that held a phone.
You can dual boot.
Yeah, I guess that'd be one way to do it. Like
I dual boot my N900 right now.
I've
seen
safe
people
OS
triple boot it.
That you hardly ever touch. It's like your safe OS you could go into.
Grub and Lilo, man.
Yeah, no, okay, there you go.
Yeah, I have a bootloader up at launch. I'm like, oh, yep, I want to launch that.
There you go. And can you boot off the SD card?
Yes.
So you could always keep like a spare, like emergency SD
Absolutely.
OS too. Boom.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Let's talk about the Gnome Project a little bit. This story came out, and it's one of these that's sort of all, early days stuff.
Blown out of proportion.
It is a little blown out of proportion, but it's interesting. There was some discussion about possibly Gnome turning into a Linux-only project, and maybe even eventually the longer-term path turning into more than just a complete desktop experience.
Right.
What kind of kicked this off was a Red Hat hacker was sort of, he's also sort of the main guy behind Gnome Shell, is my understanding. He says the future of GNOME is a Linux-based OS. It's harmful to pretend you are writing the OS core to work on any number of different kernels, user space subsystem combinations, and core libraries. That said, there may be value in defining an application development platform or SDK that exposes higher level, more consistent and coherent APIs.
Yeah.
But that is a separate issue from how we write code in
Core GNOME.
Core GNOME components. Yeah. Basically, what it came down to is if they rely on systemd and GNOME Shell, it sort of de facto becomes a Linux-only desktop experience because systemd is only available for Linux.
Right.
Leaving things like BSD out, and they say that free software and they can port it to any architecture they like, and they shouldn't be the GNOME project shouldn't be penalized for the other desktops not being able to stay up with the Linux kernel development.
Well, see, it's not really about the other desktops. Like let's say FreeBSD. It's not really about FreeBSD staying up to date with Linux kernel development.
That's what bugs me when
it's
they say
utilizing completely different tools. It's different technology, different software stacks, and that's what makes them great. Now, GNOME has been very portable up until now, and that's been a big win. And I am okay if the GNOME team's like, you know what, for GNOME 3.3, we're not going to worry about it for any platform other than Linux. And if someone wants to port it, more power to them. But we're not going to worry about it.
Even if that did happen, it wouldn't stay like that very long.
It wouldn't stay like that for very long. So I'm not too terribly concerned about it. Honestly, if they did go that route, all of a sudden I think you'd see, say, KDE market share increase because then PCBSD and FreeBSD, the people who do use GNOME on those platforms are going to ditch it for KDE or something else. And I just don't see that being in GNOME's best interest right now when already GNOME is tanking in market share. I mean, they're absolutely dropping through the floor, which is amazing considering they've been top dog for years now. Because Unity
transitions are rough, man.
Unity's gonna be knocking GNOME 3 around.
We'll see.
KDE's doing great. I mean, they're doing a real bang up job lately. I'm looking at them. I'm like, and then Migo's on the scene, and Intel's gonna be pushing that.
I think it's gonna be hard to make a
know
call until
exactly
towards
what
the
you
end of
guys
the
are
year.
going for.
I think you got to wait towards the end of the year and let this transition phase
All
pan
right.
out. I don't. This is all conversation. This is all talk, and I don't
Yeah.
think it's gonna go anywhere. But it's interesting. I mean, what about the concept?
No. If it's on the Linux Action Show, it is effing definitive. That is the end all be all.
What about his suggestion in his mailing list post that GNOME should maybe consider developing into an entire OS? Like it's a GNOME OS CD. You put that in the drive, you install it, and it's the GNOME desktop, top to bottom.
That's kind of what like a GNOME Linux distro is.
Yeah.
It's just they want the GNOME group to control
Maybe have like
one
a GNOME
Linux distro.
reference experience or something.
I guess that's fine. I mean, we kind of already have that in. I mean,
that's what distros do. Only they just pick their own apps and services.
They pick it. They basically they take the GNOME reference and they switch out a few apps and switch out a few looks. Honestly, I think that's fine.
It doesn't. In my opinion, I don't know how it all works.
You can already really get that. It like you can get a OpenSUSE based version that is like the GNOME 3 reference.
Yeah,
and that's already what it is. So I don't know what else there is to do.
And that I think is where you rely on those things like the build service and rely on those distributions. Let them focus on that, and then the GNOME team focuses on their core competency, which is to make a great desktop. Yeah. And don't worry about making it a whole operating system because that is a whole lot of extra work. And I don't think that's going to happen.
Someone in the chat room just made a great point. If you want stock, just use Arch.
There you go.
Why? I mean, really.
Or Gentoo.
Yeah, get an Arch install going or Gentoo and just stupid install GNOME shell and you're done. You have stock. So what's the big deal?
I have only once built KDE from scratch using Gentoo, and it took a long time.
Dude, it takes forever.
Yeah. And I'm not doing that again.
I did it once too, just to say that I could. But it's been years.
Brutal, man.
Years since I tried that.
All right, let's bang through the last couple of stories here really quick.
All right.
So you remember, of course, Miguel Idikazu, founder of the Gnome Project.
Yep.
And big mono guy. And of course, we covered a couple of weeks ago that Attachmate was laying off the American mono team. Well, I guess a couple of days later, it didn't really hit the news rounds, but they also laid off the other teams as well, the other country teams. So what they've done, though, is they have broken out, and Miguel's leading the cause, and they're starting their own company called Xamarin.
Yeah, Xamarin.
And it's going to be a new build of mono. They're going to continue on the mono flag, and they're going to focus on Mono Touch for Android and iOS. And they basically, if you read his blog post here, he's like, this is just the right time, we believe, for this platform. We're going to try to make it better. He says, our plan is to maximize the pleasure that developers derive from using Mono and .NET languages on their favorite platforms.
Oh, Miguel.
You like to derive pleasure.
Astoundingly misguided Miguel.
But Brian, don't you like
scroll
pleasure?
up? I want to see some text here. All right, stay right there. Here's a quote.
Okay.
From Miguel.
All right.
And I quote, again, this is not Brian saying this because it's stupid. He says, again, quote, we believe strongly in splitting the presentation layer from the business logic in your application and supporting both your backend needs with C# on the server, the client, or mobile devices and giving you the tools to use .NET languages in every desktop and mobile client. All right, that all sounds great.
Yeah.
Tools and flexibility and power.
I like that stuff.
Great. Now, as a developer, splitting the presentation layer from business logic is great. You want to stay flexible. You want to stay portable. You want to have your back-end logic code split off from your user interface. So they call that MVC, the Model View Controller Paradigm. Now, that's great. That's good design. However, what Miguel is failing to tell you here is what he means by that is that you, by selecting Mono as, say, an iOS and Android development platform, what you're really doing is selecting about 40% of what you need to get the job done, and you still need to go and use other tools, other technologies, other SDKs to get the damned UI working on all the platforms.
He's saying that Mono's use on these mobile platforms is for back-end stuff? Like it's like the engine you connect your UI to?
So you can utilize Mono. You can utilize, say, C#, which is great.
Well, okay.
And the Mono SDKs, which is very powerful to get the job done across multiple platforms.
So you could be like Pandora, right? You could use all of your audio processing logic and streaming logic you write once, and then you just develop the UI for each platform.
Except you're going to really need, and it's not just the UI, but it's interfacing with your device. So your UI, accelerometers,
so Mono has to
networking
support
stack,
all that stuff.
Audio, and Mono doesn't support all that
but
stuff.
But they're going to work on that.
No, that's not the goal of Mono. Mono is .NET with bindings and supported and open source and ported.
Right.
And those are great things. And it's just not... It's not a really big win. Like it's kind of.
You think this is why
I like Mono? Here's the thing: I really like Mono.
Yeah, you do. I know.
What they're pushing right here is kind of a waste of energy and resources for developers to even consider.
This is interesting.
And looking at they're looking to continue to contribute, maintain, and develop the open source Mono and Moonlight components. Explore the Moonlight opportunities in the mobile space and the Mac App Store. What? Really? You're pushing something that's like Silverlight, but not Silverlight, and Silverlight has already failed. I mean, no offense to Microsoft, Silverlight is actually a cool piece of tech.
It's now being used on Windows 7 as an application development environment.
In Windows Phone 7.
In Windows Phone 7, but it's not really taking... Some apps are in Silverlight, right? But it's not taking off on the desktop.
That's the thing, but it's not taking off. So what exactly do you get with Moonlight that is very close to Silverlight, but technically not? That seems like it's a waste of time.
Well, that's my problem with Ganache. It's kind of like Ganache in that sense. It's like, why are we wasting our time trying to recreate Flash? I know everybody's using it, but let's build something to replace it. And with Moonlight, the only use I have for Moonlight is I'd like to be able to watch Netflix on Linux. It doesn't support that, and Chrome's going to fix that with a plugin. And I know there's other uses, and I know Silverlight has a lot of functionality and features, but you're right.
It's very cool. It's very flexible. It's a cool piece of tech. It's just not a useful piece of tech.
I don't know if you caught this in the story, but over a year ago at Novell, Miguel and the Novell folks were already starting conversations about spinning Mono off into its own business.
Right.
And it's interesting, once they got acquired by Attachmate, obviously those talks stopped, and now it's happening again. And you have to wonder if Novell and Attachmate were looking at it in the way you're looking at it and going, I think we want to pass on this.
I would.
Yeah, it's interesting. I hadn't thought of it like that.
Now, as a company, can they make money? You know what? Almost assuredly, because there's a lot of Microsoft-friendly shops out there that would be looking to port to multiple platforms. Right. There's going to be a lot of shops that have a lot of investment in the C# code that would be looking to come to Android or iOS, and that will help them port.
So would this be for porting a Windows app?
But see, that's the thing. Most Windows apps are not .NET.
No, not really.
.NET has not really caught on.
There's a handful now.
Oh, there are plenty, but most of them are still Microsoft Foundation classes, MFC, or pure ATL or Win32 on the Windows side. Now, that's what they are on Windows. Hell, there's more GTK apps out there on Windows than there are .NET apps, as far as I can tell. At least in terms of what people are using.
Do you suppose this is maybe for some reason Microsoft would want this so that way they could for themselves?
You know what seems like a way better use of time? Founding a company that's focused entirely on making sure that GTK applications can build and look native and work great on iOS, Android, and everything else. That seems like a way better use of time.
I agree.
And work that needs to get done. Whereas this, I don't know what you get out of this. A lot of people are still going to be concerned about potential patent issues with Microsoft, and while I think that's overblown, it's still going to prevent you from getting some customers.
Yep.
And I'm looking at this, I'm like,
where's it going to go?
I would not use this.
No.
There's no purpose for this. And I honestly, I bet you the Xamarin Company, they'll be gone in a year or two.
I hope not. Miguel's a good guy. I hope we don't see that.
I don't know.
We'll follow it and see what happens.
All
right.
Come on, Miguel. You know better. Know better.
And maybe Miguel is always welcome to join us and then defend his side of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Linux Action Show, JupiterBroadcasting.com. Or Chris Elias or Brian Lunduke on Twitter. Just a real quick mention is something that's going to be developing, and I think it's always fun to talk about these stories years ahead. This could be one of these that's way off, but the Open Virtualization Alliance was announced, and it involves a couple of big names like IBM, HP, Intel, and Red Hat, and
a couple of big names.
SUSE.
Yeah.
And what it is it's a commitment for them to get in a consortium, an alliance committed to the adoption and deployment of KVM, the kernel-based virtual machine.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, this is.
I like that.
Remember, Red Hat was big on Zen.
Yeah.
Then they switched to KVM, and now they really are big on KVM. Red Hat's really and Fedora's.
They're behind it.
Yeah. Now here's the interesting thing. KVM does actually look like some great technology. All of these people have one goal in mind.
Okay.
To go against VMware. VMware ESX has actually gotten so big now. VMware has become such the de facto virtualization platform in the data center that they're actually considering the FTC is looking at breaking them, or not break, looking at monopoly issues with VMware. Just considering looking at monopoly issues.
I had no idea.
Yeah, it's that big.
That's insane.
So all of these guys are getting together, with the exception of SUSE. All of them basically are trying to prop up Red Hat to compete against that. In fact, VMware's lock on the virtualization market is so strong now that Microsoft just updated their Hyper-V virtualization system to have actual support for CentOS. They're like, we want to get as many people using Hyper-V as possible, and so you can actually get Microsoft additions for your VM now for CentOS.
That's awesome.
It's pretty crazy that how competitive this whole virtualization market is, and Red Hat's in a really big way for it to take off because they've got a lot of cred in the virtualization space with Red Hat
enterprisey.
Yeah. So interesting story, something to watch, because in a couple of years it could be potentially the biggest challenge to VMware. We'll see though, because honestly, as somebody who's used VMware quite a bit, my big issue with VMware is it is this proprietary layer that sits on top of a really locked down Linux machine that they never update unless you do a big VMware update. And it's an old Linux machine, so I always worry about like vulnerabilities in the core OS, even though you try to protect that thing as much as possible. So I don't like that, and I also don't like that unless you use their crappy web management, you have to use Windows to administer that Linux box.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that.
That drives me crazy too.
Yeah, not a big fan of that at all.
So all right, let's move on, Brian. Last story on the news docket is about Fedora 15, which will come out in a couple of days as we record this, which means our big review will be next weekend.
Next weekend will be our Fedora 15 review, and it's going to be hardcore.
I've been running on and off. I've done probably 3 reloads, because here's something to watch out for if you're about to upgrade. Hopefully we'll catch you in time if you're running on Fedora 14. This is a quote from the Fedora folks. We don't require Yum upgrades to work, and this is in the case of like shipping the next version. So be very careful. It is not considered a blocker if upgrading from Fedora 14 does not work.
Right.
So their official recommendation is don't upgrade. Just do a clean install. So something to consider for that.
Now wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Now, if you've been a long-time watcher of the show, you know that I set a ongoing record that every other episode is a Fedora hate episode or a Fedora love episode.
But dude, I lost track like forever ago.
Here's the thing, I did too.
Yeah.
Mostly because there wasn't a lot of interesting Fedora news, so the Fedora just didn't come up. So, here's what I'm going to say. Next week, I am going to be reviewing officially Fedora 15. That means that this week is the opposite. So if next week is love, this week is hate.
Well, how do you know?
Or vice versa. I will give you guys a little hint about what next week will hold. And the quote, "We don't require Yum upgrades to work," I think that's wonderful. That's just peachy. Great job, Fedora guys.
Oh, I see what that means. I got it.
Yeah, you got that one? Snuck that in there right there.
Two other little, I guess maybe just if you're curious about Fedora 15, link in the show notes, but it's going to have GNOME 3, KDE 4.6, and it's going to ship on, if everything goes as planned, on the 24th. Now, something that came out, aside from a new developers contributor agreement, which I thought was kind of interesting, especially since the deadline is so soon, June 17th, it's a new agreement that all contributors to the Fedora project have to sign to ensure that contributions to Fedora have acceptable licensing terms, but it all seems pretty straightforward to me. But here's something else that just kind of slipped out. It's called Pulp. This is really interesting. Pulp is a Red Hat community project that has the enormous task of updating and sending out updates to and from software repos. So Red Hat, and this is something that has been in the back of my mind for a long time, Red Hat is looking at this problem of populating repos and getting data out to clients. And
it's a big task.
It's a burden. And really, if you think about it, if all of a sudden overnight we just started getting this massive deployment of Linux, all of these mirrors would just really
crumble, and the experience would be terrible.
So interesting to see where Pulp's going to go. And the great thing, of course, is, I mean, you say what you will about Fedora here and there, but this stuff they work on, they're true to their word. It's open source, and if it's something awesome, it's going to improve the entire Linux community.
Now, along those same lines, do they have any mention of whether or not they've made any other graphic formats besides JPEG load faster now?
You know,
that was my favorite feature of Fedora 14.
You thinking maybe like a PNG acceleration?
Yeah,
or something?
they really need PNG acceleration because
Yeah, I
I
didn't
feel
see that
that
on the
Fedora
list.
is at its best.
Wait, are you loving right now?
Oh yeah, no, that's what I'm
Okay,
saying.
you're
I feel
loving
like
it.
Fedora is at its best when its #1 feature is making one particular graphic format load faster when you didn't even know it needed to be faster. I think that's so great.
You start with the JPEGs and you go to
From there. That's why I'm hoping.
Yeah.
I'm hoping. I'm hoping with Fedora 15 that they have, let's say, GIF acceleration. Because animated GIFs, those things bog you down.
Unless
you go to the chive.com, you load up their animated GIF libraries. That stupid page takes forever to load.
True. Unless, Brian, you're using the Nouveau driver, which then doesn't work, or the proprietary ATI Radeon driver, it doesn't work.
I love the idea that the Nouveau and NVIDIA driver would make animated JPEG explode.
Well, it's accelerated, Brian.
Yeah, it's accelerated. Yeah. Anyway, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all the news. Say something about how that's all the news.
All right. All right, Brian. Well, that's all the news for this week.
Nice job.
B-Man, last week you threw down and said you're going to start replacing Google from every little facet of your life with the Brian Cloud.
Yeah. Now here's a big. I want to take a step back.
All right.
Because I don't want to get into a Google bashing session this week.
Yeah.
Last week I kind of laid into him. I'm honestly I stand by everything I said, but I don't want to get into that because the things that we're talking about is not about whether Google is evil or not. I don't even want to get into that. I'm not interested.
Yeah.
My concern is, and if you're concerned with this too, is Google is storing much of your data now. If you're like me, you've gotten to the point where you use Google Docs and Google Reader and you use their calendar service and Gmail and you use their search engine. And it gets to a point where so much of your data is centrally stored by one company. Whether they're a good company or a bad company, things can go wrong, servers can go down.
Can I ask you, is the core issue that when you're using a free service, if you don't pay for it, generally you're the commodity?
Yeah, you're the commodity.
Is that what's bothering you?
That's one thing. I don't like the idea that all of my data is there. And realistically, your data when it's up there on Google servers is not your own. Google does own the right to use that pretty much as they see fit, with some restrictions.
Well, why not just say that I'm not going to put secret document on Google Docs?
Because then I start getting into a situation where I say, okay, in Google Docs, I'm going to take notes like my groceries. But in this other system, I'm going to take important notes.
Yeah,
well, now I have two completely different systems
That's a pain in the butt.
with different sets of information. What if I have work contacts over here and personal contacts over here? It becomes inconvenient. I have multiple passwords to remember. There's multiple points of failure that way. It starts to become a problem. So my thought is, I want to remove Google, or at least attempt to remove Google from every aspect of my life, from searching to email to documents to calendaring to RSS reading, everything. And I want to take that a step further and say that I also want to do the same thing with Dropbox. I love Dropbox.
Oh, I know, right?
Good service. I've been happy with them. They've screwed up maybe once or twice, which is pretty impressive for the time and the amount of effort I put into it.
I hate to be shameless, but as a TechSnap plug, we cover there's a lot of security issues with Dropbox that we covered in TechSnap.
So I want to have a little bit more control. I want to have a little more power, and I've been looking over the last week very heavily of how exactly to accomplish
So
that.
what do you do this? Do you sit here and go, okay, well, let me do you kind of categorize the different ways you use Google and then just attack each category?
Exactly. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down each category, a couple of the big ones first this week. What you can do to jump from the from Google's clutches, basically, of using their tools to one of your own tools, either hosted by yourself in your own server or hosted by someone else that maybe isn't Google. Or we'll get into that in a little bit.
Okay.
The end culmination of this is that we're working on building basically what I call it the Lunduke Cloud.
Oh, I like Brian Cloud, but
a lot of people call it Brian Cloud. Maybe I'll end up changing the name of it. But
Brian Cloud with a Y.
It's a server for me. I'm not making it put out there anywhere. But it's a server for me that I'm building in SUSE Studio because I'm lazy to basically build my own cloud repository at home.
So you're not going to build your own search engine?
No, No. For a search engine, I'm simply going to give recommendations.
Okay.
The other side of it is, what if you don't want to have a server hosted somewhere or sitting at home that you have full control over, that you can put your own virtual machines on to host your own cloud? Well, we also want to look into ways that you can, say, get a really cheap GoDaddy web hosting account and put a lot of these tools up there, so you can spend, $40 a year and have a spot that you have complete access to.
That's less than I pay for my Dropbox Pro account.
Exactly. So you can save money, get additional storage, and have more access to your data. You could literally SSH into your web hosting account, get it all your data, and within 5 minutes you're downloaded and you're off of their service entirely.
When you're in a pinch and you need to get to your cloud data, you could SSH in and use VI. You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's dive into it.
Okay.
We're going to cover about half of it this week. Next week's going to be the Fedora review, and then we'll cover the remaining half the following week.
Yeah.
We'll kind of wrap it all up, prop up a virtual machine for everybody that you can install if you want to run your own server, and with my final recommendations.
All right.
So let's dive into it.
I'm excited.
So let's say with the search engine. Let's start with that first, because that's what everyone uses Google for, no matter what.
Yeah.
Now, you're not going to host your own search engine because that's stupid.
And you probably don't want to use Bing.
And you probably don't want to use Bing. And let's be honest, I mean, there's some of the same concerns with using Yahoo in terms of tracking you or cataloging your information or advertising.
All of the major ones.
So there are a couple of smaller ones, though.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to go ahead and list them out.
Okay.
And give my Excuse me.
That
That
is
is root beer. That's a little root beer.
root beer.
Yeah.
First?
So
You can
the
tell
first
it's the second
one.
half of the show. We get burpy.
The first one
All right.
is called Hide My Ass Search.
There you go.
And my apologies for the French on that one. It is hidemyass.com. They have, if you go there, they have an anonymous search there that literally is a Google search that is anonymous. The problem is the UI for it is terrible.
It is terrible, yeah.
It's anonymous, but it's terrible. So I don't use it. The reason I include it here is because the name is so great.
That's true.
Hidemyass.com is a really good name. There's three more that I would recommend. One is Yauba, Y-A-U-B-A. It looks nice. It works quick. It works.
Yeah.
I like it. It's fast. It is privacy safe, as they say, and it works. I know. It works good, and it is a good, secure, private search engine.
Nice.
Another one you can check out is IXQuick. Let's go to that.
IXQuick. Looks the most like Google. It's like XP version of Google here.
IXQuick, it does look a lot like a Windows XP version of Google. Is a simple search engine. It looks fine. It does its job. It looks good. It's fairly peppy. It's not as fast as using just straight up Google, but it works fast enough.
And it's got a thing where you can plug it into your web browser and use that as your web browser search, which is nice.
Very, very nice. Another nice bit of it is when you have your search results, you can actually go through a proxy to fetch the web page. So you just simply click the proxy link and wabammy, IXQuick uses its proxy, fetches the pages for you, and brings it back over to you.
Slower, but that's really nice. Yeah, look, there's the Jupiter Broadcasting page through proxy.
Loads much slower, but it works.
I like that.
So that's very nice too. The one that I use the most, is DuckDuckGo.
Yeah, this is the one the chat room's been talking about
too. This is the best one. A Linux Action Show listener turned me onto this one some time ago. It's a great DuckDuckGo.com.
Yeah. Great
search engine. It's private. It's fantastic.
It also has the add to your web browser function. Vandrade in the chat room says encrypted.google.com, but that doesn't seem like that quite would be what you.
No. See, if you
check
go
this out. Now this one, when I search for the Linux Action Show on DuckDuckGo, it also does.
It brings up a Wikipedia summary of the item.
This is actually really nice.
It's a good search engine, and I like it a great deal. It even puts the little icons next to everything for the fave icons. It works fantastically.
It does have the fave icons.
It's a great search engine. Now, if you've thought about using Google, Google does have an encrypted search functionality. Here's the deal with that. The encrypted searching through Google, which I believe is encrypted.google.com, basically it means that you're over SSL to Google.
Yeah.
Google is still tracking everything about that.
Yeah,
it's just that no one else can spy on what you're communicating with Google.
I'm on encrypted.google.com right now, and you can see if you're watching the video version, I'm signed in right now on it.
Right. No,
so
and even if you're not signed in, you're connecting
IP
to them,
and all that.
They track your IP. Yeah. They'll compare it against anything you search unencrypted-wise. So if you're looking to move away from Google, that's definitely not a way to go. A lot of these others just have much better support for proxies and much more anonymous
Did you know that DuckDuckGo has this feature?
I did not.
This is called duckgogo.com, and it's linked off the DuckDuckGo page.
And it's a dancing duck.
It's just a page of a dancing duck.
And that's better than a lot of things. There's a lot of things that are worse than
Google
that.
doesn't have that. Google might have fancy logos from time to time.
Whatever, screw that. All right, so that's a lot of things you can do there. There's a lot of options out there. There are others. There's Scroogle. There's many others, yeah. But DuckDuckGo is my favorite. It's fast. It looks good. It works good. Right. And it's a nice, secure way to go.
Cool. That's a good one.
So
I'm going to start using that.
Let's move off of that and on to things that you can actually host yourself.
I think
because that's far more interesting.
I think you got me to switch.
Let's start with Google Docs.
All right.
Google Docs is the hardest one to replace.
Yeah.
It seems strange. Calendar is easy to replace. Webmail, super easy to replace. Dropbox functionality, mega easy to replace.
I guess you could go with like what's the other online office suite that's pretty popular? I think the one that starts with a Z. There's a pretty popular one out there that's sort of competitive.
There's a lot of things you can go with as a competitor. What I'm interested in though is hosting your own. I want to have full access to my documents. I want to be the man in charge of my own destiny.
Yeah.
I don't want some other company to go away all of a sudden or have their servers go down and me not be able to get access to my data. So
yeah, it's like my grandpa is an old tech guy from the early days of computers.
Yeah.
And he still has like his VisiCalc spreadsheets. I mean, he still has all of these files from way, way back that, I look at it and I go, would I still have these docs that I have in Google Docs 20, 30 years from now?
No.
I don't think so.
Not a chance.
I don't think so.
Not a chance. And it's cool. Think about this. If you could go back and find let's say you found an old Apple II with VisiCalc on it, and you found a floppy disk that you put it in there.
Dude, hell, an emulator. And you can find an emulator.
But let's say that you found someone's VisiCalc spreadsheets that detailed, shipping numbers of the Apple Lisa.
Wouldn't that be great?
Or like the original Amiga corporate list or some interesting bit of information that would be historical and interesting and fascinating and valuable. If you have everything hosted on the internet and you don't have access to it, you lose that bit of functionality. Unless you work really, really hard to save everything locally anyway, and then you're duplicating data, and it just becomes a problem.
Can I give one plug, though, to my boys over at Backupify? It goes into Google Docs and will suck out the docs and store it to an S3 volume of your own, which is what I have set up. But see, that's hokey, and all it takes is Google to make one API change, and breaks.
It breaks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you may not even know for a while.
Exactly.
It could be kind of working, but screwing up your data. You don't know.
I don't check the reports.
And it bothers me.
Yeah. So what's your solution for Google Docs?
The best solution I found, I'm just going to present one, because there's really one great one that I found. Well, there's two, but I'm only going to read one now. The other one at the end of this thing.
Okay.
Fang Office Community Edition.
Yeah.
Now, Fang Office is great.
F-E-N-G.
F-E-N-G office.com. There is they have their own thing that you can pay. They call it Fang Sky. It's like a paid service, very similar to, having someone host all that information.
They also offer Fang on-site services where they'll come out and do consulting to set it up.
But there is something that's called the Fang Community Edition.
So essentially, if you have Apache 2.2, PHP 5, and MySQL, you can run your own version of Google Docs.
Kinda, yeah. And there's much more to Fang Office than that.
Yeah, there
is. Way more. I recommend getting a free Fang Sky account, the trial. Try it out, see if you like it. If you like it, you like their calendaring, you like their contact stuff, you like their documents, then you can just download the Community Edition, which is open source, install it on your own server. It'll run great on a GoDaddy hosting account, your own personal server, no matter where you want to stick this. Almost any host will work with this.
Yeah, well, you need some basics. I mean, this looks cool. Basics. This looks really cool. Now, do you know, I was trying to dig around earlier on their site, and I couldn't get a definitive answer. I don't know. I know they support collaboration and sharing docs, but do you know if they do real-time editing? I don't know if they do that.
I don't know. I never tested real-time editing.
It's not as necessary, but it is
nice. It's nice. Yeah. There are real-time editing tools out there.
What I mean by real-time editing is where if I'm editing a doc and Brian's editing a doc,
we can see the changes live. Yeah.
Which is kind of handy when you're doing a show because you could actually leave a note in the doc for somebody while the show's going or something. But.
Now, so this is great. If you're looking for a purely web-based solution for collaborative documents and keeping all your documents in one secure place, this is a great solution. It really is. There are drawbacks to it. But for the most part, I found this to be very, very viable. Cool. Now, if you want to go the OpenOffice route, there are add-ons to OpenOffice that allow you to do collaboration, and you could use that in conjunction with, say, something like a Dropbox to store all your documents.
Or I had a viewer tweet me and say that they use just docs, regular text files and SVN. And then they just have a bunch of buddies that have the SVN repo.
Yeah.
And they just use that to essentially, and then they can rev it and all kinds of stuff.
Check in changes. Yeah. It's great. And merge changes together. It's fantastic. That's a good way to go.
Yeah.
So for an online document thing where you can see the documents you've been working on, when you worked on them, what type of documents, edit them in the thing, have a little spreadsheet things, That's a great way to go.
Yeah.
I really like Fang Office for that reason. All
Okay.
right, so you can host it anywhere, and I like that,
Or try their online free trial hosted.
which is not bad.
Just check to kick the tires.
Webmail.
Yeah, so like Gmail replacement.
So we're replacing Gmail entirely. So what we need
Hotmail.
is no. A place where you have a server that hosts a webmail solution that allows you to have multiple email accounts, because we're trying to replace Gmail here. One of the big things with Gmail is you have a huge amount of storage.
Yeah.
You have a number of accounts. And I think in Gmail you can have 5. But you have many different accounts, all coming into one singular web-based interface.
I love that.
That allows you to sort, search, tag, and combine yourself together.
I think I do the max. I think I pull in like 5 different accounts.
I pull in 5 accounts, and it annoys me because I have 6 accounts that I use.
Seriously.
So that's all great. So we need something with all that functionality that is free.
Okay.
That we can host ourselves, either on our own server, our own dedicated box, or on some sort of cheap hosting plan.
But it seems like that always like I've used Squirrel Mail.
Yeah.
It's just
Horde, Squirrel Mail.
Horde's another one I've used a lot.
And a lot of them are just not that great.
Yeah.
Round freaking Cube.
Yeah, check out Roundcube, huh?
Roundcube is great.
This is actually one we used a long time ago.
We used it a long time ago, and it's come a long way since then. It is fast. It is flexible. You can have a bunch of different accounts.
I like that.
The UI is nice. It's easy to use. Honestly, I find it to be more responsive and easier to use than Gmail. So in terms of just raw functionality, I find that I get more out of Roundcube than I do out of Gmail, which is nice for me. And it's completely free, and I can prop it up on any random hosting plan.
I like that it has a lot of advanced like mail client features, like even more features than like what Thunderbird has.
Oh yeah,
in a
it's
web
fantastic.
version. I will give it's more work because Roundcube is not much to set up.
Are you going to talk Zimbra?
I'll just give a quick plug to Zimbra because Zimbra is also a doc editor. And also a calendar and also email, and you can get the open source version of Zimbra for free.
Yes, and it is nice.
And it's not that. And if you run it on one of their supported platforms, like they have the Ubuntu long-term support, they have SUSE Enterprise, Fedora 11.
Yep.
Some old ones, but if you run on one of their supported releases,
it's
fairly easy to set up.
It's easy. If you have a dedicated server, Zimbra is a great option. If you don't have a dedicated server and you want to just put this on like a $50 a year hosting plan somewhere, Zimbra sucks.
Because
you just can't do it.
That's true. The other thing though that's nice about Zimbra is it has built-in functionality for like smartphone synchronization.
It's great.
And I don't know about the open source edition, but you can buy it. You can add it on. And you can do the docs collaboration.
It's not bad.
Yeah.
It's really not bad.
It's just more overhead.
It's just more overhead, and it's more costly.
Yeah.
That's the only reason I'm not including it here, because really I'm looking for purely open solutions where there's no non-open aspect to it, and where I can host it on like any random GoDaddy cheap hosting plan. That's really the big key for me. Yep. So that's a great solution, but I recommend Roundcube if you're looking for a standalone good webmail that has no ties to anything else. It's just a good damned web-based email,
and it'll pull in
anything.
Yeah,
any IMAP and POP client you want to stick into it, it'll pull it in, combine it all together, sort it all out, tag it, do whatever you want with it, and it's fast.
Yep.
So they've done a great job with that.
So okay, so that's docs.
So that's docs.
Let's search docs in email.
Great. Let's talk more of the Dropbox side of things.
Okay.
So assuming that you want to have a centralized storage repository for all of your data. We use Dropbox accounts here. We have the nicer, expensive,
we got big video files.
Bajillion gig Dropbox accounts that we utilize in order to get our job done. Well, there are some downsides. Dropbox is fairly fast to download from, fairly slow to upload to. And honestly, I don't fault Dropbox for that because they're really accomplishing a great task, and it's very, very handy. But wouldn't it be great if, one, you can make that faster? Yep. Wouldn't that be fantastic?
Yeah.
Two, wouldn't it be great if you had access to all the data on your server, even if Dropbox goes down?
Yeah.
Because we put so much stuff in Dropbox right now. If their software screws up, we are toast.
I've had betas nuke parts of my
Me too.
Dropbox directory and stuff.
I've had non-betas nuke some of my stuff.
And when I was testing Unity, I actually lost a couple hundred files in my Dropbox.
And you had to go through their web thing to kind of revert
Ubuntu
back
11,
to it. Yeah.
Ubuntu 11.04, not Unity.
And it's a real pain in the butt.
It was a pain in the butt, yeah.
So even if the company stays around, there's real benefit to hosting your own files. Now, and again, that's either on your own home server, on a server that you co-locate somewhere, like at a Rack 1 or something like that, or just off of a cheap hosting account with enough storage to accommodate.
Yeah.
So there's 3 options really in my mind. There are more than this because technically, you could just set up an FTP account, and have a permanently mounted FTP account.
So you weren't looking at, like, I noticed on your list here, and it's definitely the most popular one in the live chat room. By the way, dude, we never say Linux Action Show live at 10 a.m. on Sundays, jblive.tv. There's like 320 people watching right now, and you could be one of them. Spider Oak is all they're talking about in the chat room, but Spider Oak is not on your list. And I think that's because Spider Oak is not a self-hosted deal, right? So you focused on the self-hosted?
If it's not self-hosted, I don't want it.
Okay.
I want it self-hosted.
Because I know they're gonna call you out on that.
Self-hosted, open source.
All right.
I want full access to my data, even if the interwebs explode. My preference is to have a server sitting in my house.
Yeah.
With my internet pipe going out.
Yeah.
So that means that while I'm home,
You're working.
I have gigabit connections to my central file hosting repository.
You're always working when you're home.
I'm always working.
Yeah.
And if I'm out and about, I have enough of an upstream on my internet connection to be able to get at that data when I need it. So that's the key for me.
Right.
Now, it's still beneficial to have, say, something like a GoDaddy hosting account where it's like a cheap but good.
Well, I was
kind of
thinking, like,
depending
on how this all shaked out, I could always see like a local box that mirrors to, to a hosted box.
So let's go over some of the options.
Okay.
Because really there are 3 options that are really trying to replicate what things like Dropbox and Spider Oak offer.
Yeah.
The first is the one that's been around the longest.
Yeah.
Is iFolder.
Honestly, I was surprised to see this is even still kicking around. This was an old Novell project.
It's still here, and it's at version 3.8.
It literally came from the NetWare days.
Yeah. It's been around a long
time. It has.
Time.
It's funny, too, because it works in enterprise. It has support for Active Directory. It, of course, also works on Linux and all those good OSs.
And it works very well.
I believe it's just like a bunch of, I believe it's a nice, sophisticated WebDAV server architecture. And you can, basically, if you have port 80 out, you can connect to an iFolder, and you can browse these folders that are hosted on remote systems like their local directories on your box. Very cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
Easy, right?
Yeah.
So iFolder's fine. It's not the one I'm selecting myself to go with.
Yeah.
But iFolder's fine, and it's been around. But moving on from that.
Yeah. I for some reason, I think iFolder just isn't quite the right solution.
There are 2. There are 2 that I find kind of interesting.
Yeah.
The first off is SparkleShare.
Yeah, check this guy
Now,
out.
SparkleShare is interesting in that it is basically the same thing. It is a server-based collaboration tool for storing files. It's kind of built on top of, the ability to have, basically it's a source control repo. I believe it's built on top of Git. And it kind of sits up there, and you have revisions to your files, which is nice. And it works well. And the people that are developing it, of course, it's open source, are working on clients.
And I love look at this, the GNOME representation right up here up front.
Yeah, no, it's very Linux centric. Oh, here we go. Yeah, exactly. Where do you want your folder to sit? In fact, you could even point it at GitHub. So if you wanted to just pay for a GitHub account, which basically is a service that allows you to get a Git repository and store your files.
Or Gitorious, which is free for open source projects.
Right, but for me, I'm like one of the big things is you can have on your own Git server. So,
well, I like when
it's easy to set
on your
up.
own server, and then on the back end, it does the connection over SSH. Totally slick.
Totally great. They're building clients for all the different platforms right now. But they have, you can get it for Linux. You can get it all set up. I believe they're building an Android client right now, which is cool.
Yep.
It's still,
and every platform, iOS, everything.
It's got a ways to go, in my opinion, but it works. It does work.
Yeah, it looks neat.
But it does have a little ways to go.
So that's SparkleShare.
That's SparkleShare.
Link in the show notes if you want to check that out.
Then there's OwnCloud.
Yeah.
Which is my selection at this point.
Really?
So OwnCloud is basically really similar to SparkleShare in what it accomplishes at the moment. The thing with OwnCloud is it really kind of came out of the KDE side of things.
Yeah, it did.
We talked about it last year at this time as being a kind of a social network for your own hosting. And right now, really what it has is the ability to put your files somewhere, store them in revisions, and access them from other machines. That's all it is really right now. But a lot of what's been talked about with OwnCloud goes further than that. It goes into, having multiple types of document collaboration. Basically, a lot of the things that people are doing currently in the cloud with their data, but being able to host it themselves.
Right, and it's again like it looks like the base requirements are like Apache and MySQL and stuff that all
super light requirements.
Yeah.
Super easy to get set up somewhere, and it runs very well. In fact, you can go over right now, and this is how I've been trying OwnCloud out. Is there is actually over on SUSEgallery.com. There's a pre-ready to go OwnCloud appliance that you can grab, you can download, and you can get up and running in a virtual machine, which I've been running in a virtual box
for that. That'd be handy.
for a little while now, and it runs very, very well. It's easy to set up, takes a couple of minutes, and you're done.
And the fact that it came out of a KDE 2010 conference is probably a pretty good chance that it could end up seeing some pretty great integration with KDE.
It's great, yeah. So I
and there's already instructions to get it running on your favorite distro.
So that's the way I'm going to be going in terms of file storage is with OwnCloud. I like it. I like where it's going. I like that they're making progress on it.
OwnCloud.org.
Yes.
Very neat.
Very cool. Check out. Now, we've got a lot more topics to cover, but I wanted to talk about one additional project right now because it is weird as hell.
Is this an actual project? What is this?
Yes, it's really, really real, and it is really, really cool.
This is very cool.
Now, we've looked at this in the past. It's been ongoing for a while.
We've had a few people mention it to us.
Honestly, I made fun of it in the past. I think I might have made fun of it on the show in the past.
You think so?
I think I've made fun of a lot of things.
Yeah, that's hard to keep track.
It's hard to keep track. This one's called iOS. EYEOS. So not like the Apple.
Not
thing.
like, yeah.
Yeah, I like your actual eyeball. It is a purely web-based desktop experience. So they're basically trying to recreate a desktop experience in your browser. It's basically a little JavaScript desktop experience. Now, you think at first that's kind of kitschy. That's kind of gimmicky. Why do you necessarily want that?
That's actually my first reaction was, oh, that sounds really gimmicky.
It makes for a cool tech demo, but really, why would you actually want that? So I played around with it. And the reason I played around with it is purely because they listed on their website some of the features I'm looking for. The ability to have files, to collaboratively work with other people, to have documents that you can collaborate on, to have built-in email. All these sorts of things are in there. A calendar.
Built-in email, huh?
So I'm like, okay, so what exactly does this offer?
Built-in email, so like it has its own email client. So you go in here, you configure this guy, and then essentially you just log into the iOS whenever you want to get to your stuff.
So here's how it works.
Now that's cloud computing.
It is, that is cloud computing. That's actually cloud computing.
Yeah.
That's not just going to a web page that hosts a document.
Right.
That is a full-on
that's cloud
desktop computer in the cloud, which is awesome.
They have an app in here called iDocs. Here, I'll show it to the folks if you're watching the video version. There it is, iDocs, and
it's a word processor.
It's a word processor. It's exactly what you'd think.
Yeah, and you can share everything out. So let's say that you're sitting in there, you build your document, you can save it to your local machine, you can share it out to anyone else that you have contacts with that can log into your iOS account.
Sure.
You can get a link, so you have a public link, much like you can with a Dropbox, where you can say, okay, this file, what's the public HTTP link for this file, and you can post it somewhere. So that's an awful lot of functionality there. The webmail is Roundcube. Basically, what they've done, they've built Roundcube in. So Roundcube acts like a desktop web mail application. So if you launch it, you configure it just like you would Thunderbird or Evolution or anything else, and then you're essentially using Roundcube as an email application.
I'll give it a shot. So here's their application menu here. And as you can see, they got all the different stuff, and I'm going to go choose Mail Client. And then once I fire off the Mail Client, I'm going through like a setup. So this would be configuring Roundcube right here.
Exactly. So the cool thing is you can get it all set up right there. You can load in your documents, load in your notes here, collaborate with other people, have your address book here, have your calendar here. The calendar functionality is it's about on par with what Google Calendar offers.
Is it? Okay, well,
it's pretty decent. I think Google Calendar probably has maybe one or two extra things, but from what I could see and what I use Google Calendar for, it's definitely fully functional.
This is neat.
And you have all of these open, let's say. Let's say you have your email up, and you have your calendar up, and you have your documents up, and you see all your list of notes.
Right.
You go ahead and close that down. You close it out.
Just close it?
If you wanted to.
I'm going to close it right now.
All right, so you close it.
I'm going to say, leave this page.
You leave it. Now you go ahead and log back into it.
How do you get back? Oh, use now. That's right.
Yeah, you go ahead and log back into it.
Okay. So
it's like you left it.
Oh, wow.
It's right there.
It's
exactly where you left it off, so you don't have to worry about reopening everything up. So literally, you just have what you use, you leave it up and running.
That's really neat.
And it keeps going. The cool thing about this is it also does files. So you can literally add files into the storage and bring files out of it. So you can use it as a remote web-based file storage mechanism.
Okay.
Now, iOS is open source, which means you can run it on your own server.
Shut up.
So now, because you can run it on your own server, you can create your own accounts. Nobody has access to it but who you give access to it. All the files you upload to it are now sitting on your home server, safe and secure forever, assuming you don't screw up.
Metafreak or Metal Freak in the chat room says it's GPL3.
Yep.
Wow.
AGPL3.
Wow.
So it is actually quite cool. So it even has like things like chat. Now the chat in it is literally chat with other people on your iOS server. Okay. So if, let's say, me and Chris had an iOS server running here in the studio, we could both log in and chat with each other, but that's the only people we could chat with. Because, it's really just more of like a business collaboration.
Okay, so that's what I wondered. I looked at this chat program and I thought...
That's all there is you see other people in your contacts, which you can add people and groups to your contacts.
So can I search for you in here? Or I guess you probably already have to be in my address book.
Yeah, I'd have to be in your address book.
Huh.
So it's actually kind of cool. There you go. It actually brought me up.
Oh, there you are.
There I am.
Wow, that's neat.
Yeah.
So I can add you. So we're probably on the same iOS server
because we're on iOS.org's server, and you can just get a free account to try it out, and it's actually fairly damned cool.
It's really amazing what we can do. So we started the show with running a full actual Linux kernel operating system in your web browser, and now we're looking at a full JavaScript desktop, basically. This is all JavaScript, right?
Yeah, it's all JavaScript.
It's amazing.
So now here's the
Flash.
Cool. Here's the cool bit. No,
I don't even have Flash on this machine.
It's open source. I mean, this is fully open source. Also runs great on tablets and smartphones.
And Banjo Steve in the chat room tells us that there is an iOS app marketplace. Boy, they're going to get Apple all over their butts for this, but you can go here. You can actually get apps for that OS.
Uh-huh. Because there's an SDK. I mean, it's basically you can build JavaScript applications for this OS, and it works fairly well.
I was just thinking, boy, this would be really great if it had X, and then boom, here's X.
You want to freak out a little bit?
Okay.
There's even video player in it. So if you upload HTML5 compliant video to your thing, it is now stored in your iOS your server, and you can actually just play it right in your browser like that.
How about that?
Way cool.
Wow.
Way cool.
How does they even have oh my God, they even have a video converter. So think about this. If you
upload it, convert your video.
If you had like this on a super fast, unlimited GoDaddy server, and you wanted to bang out some video formats really quick, you might be able to just throw the
depending on what you can install on the GoDaddy server. Yeah. But so it
just requires FFmpeg be installed on the server, but
yeah, and you have to be able to modify your Apache values a little bit to manage to handle the files.
Yeah, the big file. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if you could do that.
All right, but on your own rig.
Your own rig.
Yeah.
This is what started getting me excited.
And I love the fact you could just disconnect it and walk away.
You disconnect it, walk away, it keeps going.
That's neat.
I wrote this off as come on. It looks like a joke.
It's funny, dude, because
it looks like a hoax.
On this netbook we have right here,
not.
I loaded the latest Jolly OS build, and I was going to give it a review on the show, but I really just don't really have much to say. And one of the components of Jolly OS, though, is a web-based version of your Jolly interface in the web page, but a lot of it doesn't work. Like any local apps, like Pigeon or anything you install, don't work in the web interface, whereas this is really committed. Everything's in there, and I could just bring this same thing up on this Wind.
Yes.
And then I'm set to go.
Got my little N900, of course, to try it out. Was sitting on the toilet the other day. Boop. Popped open my iOS account. Works fine. Of course the screen is small. Of course it's a pain in the butt when the screen is that small.
Banjo Steve has it on his server at home, 500 megahertz NAS drive with 256 megs of RAM.
And it should be just fine. It's actually fairly impressive. Now, from my mind...
Too bad it's iOS. It's EYE.
Because of the name, yeah.
Yeah, it's EYE, but... I mean,
Apple's probably going to get a tizzy about it at some point. But they can change the name. I don't care what it's called.
Check out the events thing. So here's where I added you, and somebody from the chat room has already...
Added you.
Yeah.
And you've just got a real-time thing.
I'm Chris LAS on here. But, of course, I'll probably end up building it on my own server, but that's really neat.
Not bad, right?
I'm really impressed.
Damned bad.
And I have it in dashboard mode, but you could have it in just a straight up regular old desktop with desktop icons
and
mode.
It basically just looks like an average desktop. It doesn't look, fancy. It doesn't look old. It looks very average.
I asked you a funny question. Hey, Brian doesn't have a web browser. You're like, why would you want a web browser? But I would love to be able to
I bet you in the marketplace there is.
I would love to have things I want to read and say I'm somewhere else and I just could close the thing and then walk away and come back and open it at home and have all my same stuff up. It's
Not
really
bad. And for my mind, I kept thinking about this, and this is the only This is the only way that something like a Chrome OS netbook makes sense to me.
Right.
Because, a Chrome OS netbook just makes no sense to me. But if you really end up living in a browser like this, then it starts to make a little bit more sense.
I guess this is super straightforward, super low what you need in order to use it, kind of like I'm getting
you're getting a constant flurry of requests.
There's people in the chat room that are using this thing. What I don't understand quite fully, though, is, so there we go. See, now I'm chatting with people on the iOS server. How cool is that?
It is epic.
What I don't fully get is why would I just not maybe do like free NX and just remote into a full Linux desktop?
Couple of reasons.
Yeah.
And I agree. I see what you're saying. Or just like terminal type connection.
But you got to have the free NX software for one. You got the client software.
You got to have the software. And what you're really doing is you don't have as much flexibility. So now let's say if you have this set up, it's a web page. Every piece of that text is copy and pasteable now.
Oh, I do like that.
Now, you can literally go to any single device with a web browser on the planet.
Right.
And you have a constant, continuous state.
Including tablets that support HTML5.
Yeah, it works fine on an iPad.
So my question to you then is also, does the dynamic not change if you're looking at the collaboration aspect of it? Because that's really, I think, the strong suit. Because you could have the Jupyter iOS where all of the Jupyter broadcasting crew logs into
one server.
Yeah.
Whereas if you have one server that you're really just free annexing into,
that's
not so good. Not so good. So this is great collaboration tools. And obviously this is not going to replace your desktop. It just isn't. But for things that you're already using the Google suite of tools for, it replaces those.
It can replace those, and it's going to augment my desktop
easily. So I've been playing around with this for a bit, and I'm honestly loving it more and more.
It's really neat. Look at all these guys. Look at all these guys are loving it.
Now, how cool would it be? I'm just going to throw this out there. How cool would it be to have a Jupyter Colony, an ios.jupytercolony.com, where everyone could have an email account?
Oh, man.
Where you could literally have a community desktop.
A Jupyter Colony iOS?
Would that not be just amazing? Where you could literally
go in... What would they use it for, though?
What you use Google for right now.
Yeah. That is a good idea.
Everything. Where every video that we've ever made is in there in HTML5 format to watch.
Chat room, look at all these chats I got going now. The chat room's totally on board.
Yeah, the chat room's on board. It's very, very cool. I'm a big fan of it. So just so you guys know, this is something that is going to be a top priority.
It's free. They're saying, Brian, how much is it? How much? It's free.
It's free. This is open source, dudes. This is so cool. So this is what I'm looking at for.
That's cool.
And I wasn't originally thinking this. Originally, I was thinking I would use Roundcube because I love Roundcube.
But this has Roundcube built in.
This has Roundcube. So they've already taken some of my best choices and put it in here. Now, the thing is, so this does do file storage. So I can put files up and bring files down.
Okay.
But it's not immediately integrated in with my actual desktop. That is, to me, the one single drawback to this system.
Do you know what the file storage is on the back end? Could it
it's file storage, dude.
So it's files.
So I'm looking at what we can do to potentially pair this up with something like OwnCloud.
And have the file storage stored in an OwnCloud repo.
I'm looking into it. I don't even know what's going to be possible at this point.
Yeah.
But that to me is the only drawback to this. I'm loving this. It's great on my portable devices. I mean, it's not an amazing experience on a handheld. I'm going to give you that because it's a desktop.
Yeah.
But it works, guys.
Yeah.
It works. So this is right now my current recommendation. I recommend everyone go to uieos.org. Try it out. The account's free. If you're worried about your sensitive data, don't put all your emails and everything into it. Just try it out. See if you kind of like it. It's rough around the edges and spots.
Probably not.
Some of the configuration panels have checkboxes that don't do anything. There are gotchas. However, it's fully web-based, and they've been updating it rapidly. This new version just came out a few weeks ago, I believe. And
that's what I was going to wonder is once you deploy this on your server, how do you...
You just update it. It's just a web page.
I wonder about the apps and all that stuff, though, is what I'm wondering.
Like if it keeps the apps?
Yeah,
I believe it keeps it. At least I think it did between version 2.4 and 2.5, which is the current.
That's not bad.
So it's very, very cool. Is this the best thing ever? No. But is it awesome? Yes, it's very awesome. And I almost wrote it off. I almost didn't even give it a second look because it looks like you guys have all seen it. Like people are like, I use a JavaScript to make it look like you're in a desktop. Come on, there's like 80 million of
We've
those
seen
on the
them
internet, and they're neat,
Or they're like,
fun.
or they're like, you go to a web page and it's like a VNC Java applet.
Yeah.
That then loads into a Linux desktop.
Come on, that doesn't count. But this is very cool.
Yeah.
I'm very, very impressed. So right now I'm saying if you're looking to get rid of Google, your best options are this.
That's pretty cool.
And well, I'd say DuckDuckGo for your search engine.
DuckDuckGo, and then maybe OwnCloud for your Dropbox.
Now, there are other things. There's Google Reader. There's a lot of other services that maybe you're using Google for. We're going to talk about that not next week, but the week after, along with the official, I don't know, maybe I'll change the name to Brian Cloud. Right now, it's the Lunduke Cloud because that's my name, and I like saying Lunduke a lot.
I guess there's some sort of FTP backend access to it as well.
To the files.
Yeah.
The files are just files.
So you could just set up anything.
Yeah, you could SSH or FTP or have OwnCloud or there are ways to do it. It may need a little bit of scripting to make it work quite right, but
well, like in
pretty awesome.
You could just use SFTP and just mount it as like an SSH share, and you're good to go, and just get when you need it on the desktop that way.
Exactly. Kind of neat, right?
I'm very impressed with iOS.
Kinda neat.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's
link in the show notes to that.
I know this has taken a while to go through a lot of this stuff, but I really do think this is interesting and important. And here's the great part. You use something like this, you put it on your own server or a community-run server that's, say, for a few hundred or a few thousand people all going to one box. What happens, and if we can find a way to make sure all of your data is easily backupable,
right,
and it's a small group of people that aren't spying on each other.
Yeah.
Well, to me, that's just like, that's one of the big reasons why we use Linux. Flexibility, access to your data, and personal freedom.
And transparency.
I mean, these are all things that we want, and these are things that we're losing by putting all of our data in the hands of just one company, whether it's Google or anyone else. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how nice the company is. It doesn't matter. We're putting
or how
so
much they promise
data,
not to be evil.
Right.
Yeah.
They can screw up. They can make mistakes. Google has. They're human people running the show there.
Right.
They will screw up from time to time. This makes it so that if we screw up, we screwed up. It's our own damn fault if we lose our data.
Yeah.
It's our own fault if we accidentally make our data accessible to hackers with elite skills. It's our own fault. It's not someone else's fault. The only people we can get mad at then is us. And if we forgot to back up, whoops, we forgot to back up. And that's been a problem forever. It always will be. We don't need to even try and solve that one. What we just want to do is make sure that we have complete power. I want to SSH or FTP to my server and get at my files.
I like the idea of the Jupyter Colony iOS. That's really neat. I think we should look at that.
Would be cool, wouldn't it?
It would be really neat.
Anyway, that's all I got. If you have thoughts on this, on any of these solutions, head on over to jupytercolony.com. Talk about it in there. You can chat about it. Go into the Linux Action Show forum. I know this isn't necessarily just Linux-based, but we're going to run this server on Linux, so there you go. Talk about it. If you have any experience with iOS or Roundcube
or some of the apps
or DuckDuckGo or any of this stuff,
I'd love to know some good iOS apps.
That's what I was thinking.
Boy, that sounds wrong to say, but
you know what I mean. Yeah, if you have any applications you think are cool with this, recommend it in there, and we'll take it where we take it.
Definitely.
But that's it. There you have it. That is the culmination of my last week of trying to get rid of Google from my life.
And there's probably going to be some more after, not next week, because next week's Fedora.
The following week.
Following week, so good chance if you guys still want to get your thoughts in, still time to make it in the following episode.
You have basically about a week before I'm going to nail down this Brian Cloud image.
There you go.
And if you want to use it, you can. I don't care. I don't have any link
now,
to
just
it.
FYI,
I don't make any money off of it.
It's
just for me.
When you use the Jupyter Colony Cloud, you need to provide us with a blood sample and your social security number and your date of birth. But we're not going to use your data for anything nefarious.
And your bank routing number.
Yeah, that'd be preferable. Or your PayPal account directly would be fine.
Well, the PayPal account, login, and password are required fields. There's a little asterisk next to those.
Yeah, just follow the asterisk.
You have to log in.
You'll get it.
Come on, security, guys.
Yeah.
Security.
And we'll get SSL working sooner or later. Don't worry about it. All right, Brian. That's our look at replacing the Google.
And that brings us to the end of this week's Amazing Spectacular broadcast.
Ooh.
I want to thank everyone for tuning in and bearing with us while we did that little onslaught of data.
Oh, hey, you never
right
know.
at your guys' face.
Let us know what you guys think. And then, of course, there's always good ways to get a hold of us to share us your thoughts in quick little bursts on Twitter.
Yep.
Twitter.com/ChrisLAS.
And Brian Lunduke. That is my whole damned name.
And if you'd like to join us live, we do these every single Sunday over at jblive.tv.
Gosh, we sure do.
I know, right? At 10 a.m. Pacific.
Pacific time.
Usually around 5 or 6 Pacific is when the episode releases for on demand.
Their boots. Yeah. It's very, very exciting. Again, head over to Jupiter Colony, chat about everything we've talked about in this segment, because honestly, that was a lot of stuff.
A lot of show.
And I would love your guys' recommendations. If we miss stuff, tell us about it, because we are just human beings. We're a lot like Flash Gordon, though, you know?
Interesting. Okay, I'm following you.
Where we are just a man.
Yeah. With extraordinary ability.
With a man's courage. Nothing but a man that can never fail.
Ooh.
According to the Queen song from the movie The Flash.
Yeah, okay,
yeah.
all right.
Yeah, so this is what I'm trying to say.
I got you.
I simply wanted to recommend that movie because it's so cool.
Yeah.
That's really why I brought that up just
it's good
there.
to know.
I tried to work it in the rest
I'll
of the
jot that
episode,
down.
but I haven't been able to. I was kind of hoping we'd have like a segment where we talked about Flash or something, and I could be like, have you guys watched Flash recently?
Speaking of Flash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, this is a great, great movie, and we should be watching it, and has nothing to do with the Linux Action Show. I was just listening to the soundtrack on the way here today.
That makes sense.
Yes, it does.
All right, everyone. Well, thanks so much for watching or listening to this episode of the Linux Action Show, and we'll see you right back here next Sunday.
Probably.
You gotta scoot over a little bit. Scoot over just a little bit.
Which way?
That way it's a little bit, so we're both about on the same. You see? It looks a little weird. No, other. It looks weird.
You mean get shorter?
No, yeah. Wait, no. No, that's too far. There we go.
That's too far, eh?
Here we go.
Yo.
Hey. We're in the Canadian wilderness. You're doing the news.
I don't think we're in the wilderness.
No, it's American made now.
Yeah, this looks American, man.
We're just Canadians.
You can tell.
We're Canadians who are touring.
Looks patriotic.
We're touring America.
No, we're not. Dude.
Right? Let's do the news.